Welcome to the Brass and Woodwind shop. I have a saxophone in my shop today and I need to pull all the keys off it, so I'll show you how to do that. This job is usually not that hard to do, as long as you don't run into any stuck hinge rods along the way. This saxophone is a Bundy, but all saxophones are pretty much the same. There are a few minor differences, but you can figure that out as you go. If everything goes well and you don't run into any problems along the way, you don't really need that many tools. I have two screwdrivers, and these are like the professional screwdrivers. If you don't have these, you can use other screwdrivers, they'll work. One has the larger head, and that's for pivot screws, and one has the medium-sized head, and that's for the hinge rods. And then there's one smaller than this. Usually you use that on flutes and clarinets, but you don't really need that one in saxophones usually. You will also need a needle nose pliers. And you also need a spring hook. This one's homemade. It has a little hook on one side, and then on the other side it has like a little notch to push the spring. You can buy these, they're really not that expensive. But we'll start with the neck octave key. There's a technique to getting screws out. You don't just put the screwdriver in there and push, then what's going to happen? You're going to slip, you're going to end up with a hole in your skin. So what you do is you guide it with your thumb, and you line it up, and you make sure that if it slips, that it slips up like that, so you're not going to poke anything, because I guarantee you if you have your hand in the way it will slip and you will poke a hole in yourself. Also, you want your hands on the workbench, and the reason for that is when it slips, not if it slips, but when it slips, it's just going to slip a little bit, and you won't get an uncontrolled slip like that, because then you can hurt someone if they're on the other side of you. You can just do a lot of mess with a little screwdriver. So trust me there, just put your hands on the workbench and then you just pull it out. Hopefully it comes out easily. If it doesn't, then there are ways of getting them out, but that's for a different video. Once you get the screw out, put it on your screw board. I forgot to mention this earlier. Screw board is important. It keeps your screws in order, keeps them from getting lost. And these are not very hard to make. Just take a board and a drill, and then you can drill out some holes. These have two sets of holes, a larger and a smaller set of holes. The smaller ones are for the pivot screws, the little screws, and then the larger ones are for the hinge rods. It is very important that you get the screws in the right order, because when you put it together you want it to go back together the same way. It might help for if you're new at it, just write the names of the keys next to the hinge rod. And I have a video I made on the names of the keys, and the link is in the description below. Next I'm going to take off the 3 palm keys, and always keep in mind, keep your hand on the bench. You do not want to slip and make holes where you don't want them. To get the screw out, just pull it out with your fingers. If it doesn't come out easily, just take the round nose pliers and just pull it out, squeezing lightly. Usually they come out without much problem. And turn it over, take out the next key. Now all the palm keys are off. Now that all the palm keys are off, the next one is the long left-hand hinge rod. And on different saxophones there are different keys on there, but pretty much it's the same. It has usually the G key. Sometimes the G key has 2 pivot screws that hold it in. In this case it goes through the rod. In others the B flat key is held in by pivot screws. But just figure that out yourself. It's not that hard to figure out. And again, remember, my hand is blocked on the bench, and my other hand is far enough away that if it slips, it's not going to poke it. Okay, let's pull this out. And then with my other hand, I'm countering the spring. The spring's pushing it this way, so I'm countering it with my thumb as I pull this out, so that there's no damage done to the keys. Okay. So now there are several keys that come off with that one hinge rod. Next is the high E key, and I have my larger of the 2 screwdrivers that I'm using for the pivot screws. So I just pull that screw out, and it is important to keep these screws in order on the pegboard. So what I do is take the top one and put it on the top, and then I take the bottom one and I put it on right below it, right here, and that is for the high E key. Now if this saxophone had pivot screws holding on the G key and the B flat key, right in this area, I'd pull those off now. And then just line the screws up in order and keep track of which screw goes where. But this one doesn't have that, so I'm just going to keep going. Next are the side C and side B flat keys. These have different setups on different saxophones. Some of them have the one key setup, others have the lever with the key like this for both of the keys. Take out the side C key first. In general, on saxophones I go from the top to the bottom. And then the side B flat. And then the lever, which is held on by 2 pivot screws. Next, the side F sharp, and then these 2 keys here. And these 2 come off with 1 hinge rod. On some brands of saxophones, they have 2 sets of pivot screws, one for the low E flat key and then one for the low C key. Now we're done with this side of the saxophone. Turn it around, and on this saxophone I have to take off this key guard to get at these keys. And C sharp. Then the belt keys. Next, the G sharp lever. Then the right hand key hinge rod. And then all the right hand keys just come right off. And that just leaves a couple of keys right at the top. Then there's just the auxiliary high F rocker. This hinge rod is proving to be a little bit stuck. When I turn this, the key goes with it, and it's hard to come out. It won't come out very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the screwdriver, hold it firm, and push down the key with my thumb, then turn the screwdriver, and then just keep doing that until it loosens up. Okay, there we go. Now it's loosening up. That's one trick you can use to get out stuck hinge rods if they're not very stuck. There are several other techniques you can use if they're more stuck, but that's for another video. So look in the description below for links to the videos on how to get out stuck hinge rods. Then the last thing on the saxophone is the octave lever. So I'm going to just finish pulling that out. Then the saxophone is dismantled. So there it is, the saxophone is all taken apart. Here's the screw board, and this is what it's going to look like, at least for a Bundy saxophone. The palm key hinge rods, the long left-hand hinge rod, and then the ones on the side of the saxophone, let's see, up to about there. And then that's the bell key hinge rod. Then the ones on the back of the saxophone, the G-sharp lever hinge rod and the right key hinge rod. Then down here are the octave mechanism and the auxiliary high F rocker. When you're taking apart a saxophone, use your common sense. It's better not to destroy the saxophone than it is to not be able to get a key off the saxophone. So just leave the key on, take it to your local repair shop, and see if they can get it out for you. And remember, as with any other repair, if you're not comfortable trying it, don't try it. Also remember safety. Don't risk your hands, and especially don't risk your eyes, and think before you do anything. I hope this video has been helpful. Please feel free to subscribe and check in the description below for links to some of my other repair videos.